Welcome to the second episode of my 2025 preseason power rankings. Today we're talking about the Cleveland Browns, a team that is surrounded by dysfunction, if we're being entirely honest. But I want to look at this team because, you know what? There's a thing or two to like here. Listen, at least they're not 32, right? I have them ranked ahead of the Saints, so good on them. We're going to get into it. What makes me a little bit optimistic, and for the most part, what we're going to be talking about is what I don't like about this team, because there is a lot not to like. This is far from a good team, and what sucks is I don't even think they have much upside, and a big reason why is because they are struggling at the quarterback position. If you want to be a somewhat legitimate team, maybe even just a pesky team that can upset teams throughout the season, you gotta at least have somebody playing quarterback, a solidified answer, someone that maybe could give you some excitement. But this is a five-horse race at the quarterback position between Deshaun Watson, who, let's be honest, if he didn't play on that contract, he probably wouldn't just be cut by the Browns, but I don't think he would have an NFL roster spot at the moment. Then Joe Flacco, who's a veteran, who you might see have a good game or two throughout the year, but for the most part, there's a reason that he hasn't held a starting job in today's league, right? Of course, he has his couple Linsanity runs every now and then, but for the most part, he's someone that is more of a flash-in-the-pan guy as a backup quarterback than anything. It's also worth mentioning his age. I don't think the Browns, being a rebuilding team, would be overly interested in playing Joe Flacco too much. Then we have two rookies, Dillon Gabriel, who they drafted in round 3. Dillon Gabriel, he's an improviser. He's going to make some fun plays when he is in the game, but he doesn't create explosives, right? And then the big name in their quarterback room was their 5th-round pick, Shedeur Sanders. Fell very far in the draft because of some character concerns. He's a very accurate quarterback, but he's also a very flawed one. There were some nice plays. There were some nice highlights, but in terms of down-to-down consistency, he didn't show you what you wanted to see in an NFL quarterback. Really, there were some things. The accuracy's nice, but for the most part, this wasn't some outstanding quarterback prospect. And then Kenny Pickett, who is a former first-rounder, but ever since he got drafted, it has only been downhill. There's not much to like in that quarterback room. I could see a world where any of those 5 win the QB1 position. I could see it going a multitude of different ways, but I don't think it really matters. All 5 of those quarterbacks are going to operate the short to intermediate game relatively well because they are more accurate guys. It's just about teaching them to kind of process the field a little bit better. For those younger guys there, Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel, you got to learn a little bit more about how to hit those throws on time. And then Joe Flacco, who I think is the best quarterback in this room, his issue is just that he's an older player. If you're this Cleveland Browns team, you don't want to be playing an older quarterback. You're trying to rebuild. You want to see what you have in Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Maybe Kenny Pickett shows you something. And you're paying Deshaun Watson all that money. It's hard not to put him out there, considering how much they're paying him. It's a weird quarterback room. I've never seen this many guys have a legitimate case for being the starter, but it won't really matter because no matter who is starting, they're not going to be overly productive. And that's because, 1, all 5 of those guys really just aren't very good options. And 2, the wide receiver room isn't overly good. I'm not impressed by this at all. Cedric Tillman is a nice physical receiver. Jerry Jeudy is a nice route runner. But that's really all I could say. All I could really say about those 2 guys are they have nice aspects of their game. That doesn't make them nice receivers. Deontay Johnson, pretty similar situation. Very nice route runner. Can he consistently catch the football? I don't really like what I'm seeing in that receiver room. I do really like David Njoku. I think he can be a productive player for them. I think he's been a very productive and underrated player for Cleveland. But still, this isn't an offense that I really like in terms of the passing attack because you have a weak quarterback room and you don't really have too many weapons, similarly to the Saints, there's some stuff to like in terms of the running backs. There's some depth there. I like Dylan Sampson. I think Quinshon Judkins is a nice running back. I think even Jerome Ford, when he gets out there, he's going to be able to be a consistent RB3. Right now he's listed as the RB1. I expect that to change. I think Quinshon Judkins is going to win that spot very early on. And then the offensive line, you have some veterans that you can rely on, but overall I wouldn't call it some overwhelmingly great offensive line. Stefanski's game plan is going to be revolving around that young running back room that I just mentioned, around those veteran offensive linemen. They do not intend to win many games relying on any of those 5 quarterbacks. And you can't blame them because, like I said, they're not overly good quarterbacks, and the receiver room isn't overly talented either. They're going to rely on that young running back room. They're going to lean on them. They want to win games with that short passing attack and then complement it with a nice play-action game. But for the most part, they're going to be doing their damage on the ground. Steady games with Judkins, with Sampson going out there. I expect that to be how this offense works. I don't think they're going to be overly productive on the offensive side of the ball. But that defense is a unit I like. It is. Not one I love, but there is some reason to think that they might have a quietly good defense throughout the year. Now, it sucks they're not going to be overly productive on the offensive side of the ball, but Jim Schwartz knows what he's doing. He's a veteran in this league. He's going to be running this kind of 4-2 nickel defense, rotate occasionally into a 4-3 when he needs to match maybe a heavier personnel, but for the most part, we're going to see that 4-2, and he is going to run cover 1 a large majority of the time. The opposing team is going to know that they're running cover 1. When you have a more predictable offense, when you have a more predictable defense like that, the expectation is that the players are going to kind of elevate you, right? Jim Schwartz isn't going to win games on the chalkboard. He's trying to win games because of his players. He's going to lean on these players. And the fact is, you look at this group, it's not a bad one. There's names to like here. Keep in mind, in 2023, under Jim Schwartz, this defense was very, very productive, very, very good. Big reason why was Myles Garrett, but it's also worth mentioning that corner trio was outstanding in 2023. Martin Emerson, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, all 3 of them were very productive. Last year was a little bit of a down season for all 3 of those guys. What will we see happen this year? That's going to determine a lot about how this Brown season goes. Then you look at the defensive front, and there's more optimism here. Of course, Myles Garrett is great, and no matter what, you are going to have an all right, at least, defensive front just because Myles Garrett exists. But in order to really take advantage of such a talented player, you have to add talent around them. And that is exactly what the Browns did in the draft. They added Mason Graham, who I love. I think Mason Graham has a really refined game. I think he might be a little bit of a lighter guy, but he can hold up his ground as a run defender. He could get to the quarterback. And then, of course, Myles Garrett on the edge. We know what he's going to do. He's a game breaker. He's going to make electrifying play after electrifying play. One of the true great defensive players in today's league. And now you added Carson Schwetzinger just behind them at the linebacker position. He's a smarter player. He's going to complement those guys well. I honestly think this could be a capable defensive unit, but you're going to have to see improvement from that secondary. Jim Schwartz, he's not going to reinvent the wheel from a schematic perspective. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of cover 1. A lot of cover 1. And when you're running that type of defense, you have to have your players produce. That has to be the defensive lineman producing. That has to be the corners producing. You can't have Martin Emerson allow 500 yards like he did last year. You just can't have it. It's not going to work. You need Denzel Ward to prove he is one of those great corners that he was just a couple of years ago. If they do that, and Myles Garrett is playing well, Mason Graham competes for Defensive Rookie of the Year, something I think is very possible, this could be an average defense. It's very, very possible. It wouldn't shock me. The only thing is, like I said, offensively, I think they're very weak. I think they're very, very weak on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to try and rely on the run game, and that is going to complement the nice defensive play of this team. But still, at some point, you got to score points, right? It doesn't matter if you're holding the opponent to 17 points a game if you can't even score 14 points a game. That's what I'm concerned about with this Cleveland Browns team. Let's look at the schedule and see where I have them finishing. This is not a team I'm optimistic about, like I've been saying ad nauseum, and that 3-14 record reflects that. They're playing against the entire NFC North. They're playing against the Ravens twice. It's not the worst schedule on earth, but there's a lot of games where they just don't have a chance. In all honesty, they don't have a chance. We start with a couple losses straight to start the season. Week 1 against the Bengals, every Bengals game comes down to one thing. What is the absolute ceiling of your offense? Cleveland might be able to get a stop or two throughout the game, but I still think the Bengals are going to drop 30, at least. And I don't think the Browns will score 30 all season. I don't think there's going to be one game where that happens. So, even against that very, very weak Cincinnati defense, I still think the Browns are going to lose that game at home. Then you face off against Baltimore. I think Cleveland might be able to hold up a little bit better than some teams against that run game. But, once again, can I really expect the Browns to score much? I don't. I really don't at all. Then, week 3, Green Bay, Matt LaFleur, we know he's a great coach. Stefanski isn't a coach that I really dislike, but the Packers are the better coach team. The Packers have way more talent. Can I see an upset? I guess, but the Packers also have a little bit more time to prepare here. I got to go with Green Bay. They're just the much better team, and the same stays true with Detroit. Detroit is one of the most talented teams in the entire NFL. Cleveland, again, they have some strengths. Maybe Myles Garrett and Mason Graham can force a couple issues for Jared Goff. But I still think Detroit is bound to pick that Cleveland offense apart. And I don't see any quarterback being able to do anything to Brian Flores in that defense. So that's 5 straight losses, and I feel very comfortable saying that. Now, maybe they could get an upset in week 6, but Pittsburgh's coming off a bye. So I don't think they're going to be able to really undermine Cleveland like that. Steelers can be caught sleeping. It always can happen. But I don't see that happening. Once again, Pittsburgh coming off a bye. Then later I have them getting their first win of the season against Miami. Miami is a team I also don't really like. I think they have the personnel to really jam up Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, throw off the timing of that offense. Then all of a sudden Tua starts making a lot of mistakes, let alone if Tua gets hurt at this point of the season. Then the Browns are really going to be fine. They don't have to worry about scoring much. I think this is a game where Cleveland's defense can straight up dominate to the point where maybe they only score 10 points, 13 points during the whole game and still win. Like, I think that's the type of game this will be. And I think they'll follow that up with another win against the Patriots. The Patriots are another team. I am worried about Drake May. I think Drake May can do a lot of damage to you, but not if the receivers don't have the opportunity to catch the ball because they don't get any separation, right? Not if the run game can't get going. And I think Cleveland, again, can win a low-scoring affair right here. And I actually think the Patriots might be able to make a little bit of noise throughout this season. So that's not just the Browns beating another bad team like they did with Miami. I think that's like a strong win for them. Then they have a bye week, and then they face off against the Jets, who are also coming off a bye week. I think Justin Fields and his playmaking ability on the ground might cause some problems for the Browns. I think he's bound to force a big play or two off script. And I think that's all it takes to beat Cleveland. Just a big play or two, right? Once again, I don't like this offense. I don't think they're going to be able to do much against an Aaron Glenn defense right here. I really think that's the key thing. In all of these losses, I just don't think the Browns will be able to do much offensively. I like what their defense can do, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Lamar Jackson, no matter what, even against a good defense, is still going to get you a solid amount of points, 24, 27 points. Browns, I don't see you getting 24 or 27 points against Baltimore. So I have that one as a win for Baltimore. Even in Cleveland, I think Baltimore's bound to win it. Then I do have them upsetting the Raiders here. I really think it just comes down to the fact they had their little bright spot in week 7, week 8. I think now they're really just going to be experimenting at quarterback. I think they might just be able to catch the Raiders off guard. Really, right? They were studying for Dylan Gabriel, and now Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback that comes into the game. It catches them off guard. That could cause problems for a defense that doesn't really have the talent to make up for not being 100% prepared to play against a certain quarterback. I think the Raiders lack some talent in the secondary, and because of that, you catch them off guard with a certain change offensively. Like I said, the quarterback position, I think good things can happen. But then I have San Fran beating them. I have Tennessee beating them. I think Cam Ward gets hot around this time. I think Caleb Williams is bound to beat him right after. This game will be in Chicago. Listen, this is a stretch right here. You have 4 home games in 5 weeks. I have them losing all of them, but this could very well be a period of positivity for Cleveland. But like I said, I think they're going to be switching quarterbacks around a lot. They're going to lack stability, and a lot of players are bound to kind of give up around this time of the year. So when they're playing against a team like the Bills are going to steamroll them. Pittsburgh, maybe Cleveland can get an upset here, but like I said, I really think Cleveland's heart is going to be out of it right now. I think there's a chance we see Stefanski get fired at some point. Maybe that'll be right before that Raiders game. That's why they get the win with an interim head coach. Interim head coaches tend to win their first game. Bengals at home. Once again, same old story. Bengals know how to score. Cleveland doesn't. Even against a bad defense, it doesn't matter. Cleveland will shoot itself in the foot. I think the Browns are not going to have a very good season. Finish it 3-14. Not a very good record for a team that, let's be honest, isn't overly good either. Time to start learning the draft.